Good afternoon, everyone. It's Lisa Norell, and happy Friday. I am so glad to be here. This is my last live stream of the year, and what a day it's going to be. I have the pleasure of having two great guests with me, Susan Weber and Eric McCarthy, who will be joining us shortly. And in the meantime, I hope you like my holiday decor. I have a beautiful amaryllis that has decided to bloom just in time because the amaryllis matches the color of the snow outside that fell this week here in Virginia. It's quite lovely. So I've also festooned the shelving with some garland, and I'm getting in the holiday spirit. And I think that this session today will get you and your business in the holiday spirit as well. So lots to celebrate for the year. And one of them, the other two things that I'm celebrating is I have now started working with Tim Sohn, who joins us today as my behind the scenes producer. And so Tim is going to allow me to focus on you today and our guests. And boy, am I relieved. So Tim, welcome. I know we won't be seeing you, but we know you're there and we're glad you're there. And the other thing that we're very excited about is that I have launched a new course to help many of us who are feeling a little isolated here in the winter months, who are thinking, okay, I really have found that my career came to a bit of a standstill in the last 8 or 9 months. I want to find like-minded professionals who I can spend time with, ask tough questions, and also learn from each other. So I have just launched my new course on Knowable. So while you're out prancing in the snow, working out, doing your Orange Theory at home, taking those online yoga classes, or simply sitting by the fire over the next several weeks, I hope you will use that time for learning and growth. So go to knowable.fyi or use the link here in this slide and send me an email, and I'll make sure that you get the very special link to order the course. So with that, let me move to our agenda today, and let's see about what today's about, the year in review. So we are going to talk today with Susan and Eric about lessons learned during 2020 and how you can position yourself for an extraordinary 2021. I am very optimistic for so many reasons, not to mention the number of vaccines being approved. Moderna just got approved, I believe, by the FDA, and we are hoping for acceptance of the vaccines. But how did the pandemic affect things like team engagement and productivity? And what kinds of things are leaders doing to grow in spite of the slowdowns, in spite of some concerns with unemployment, cutbacks in consumer spending, and other things? So we're going to hear from two people who are making it through the pandemic and are going to share some behind the scenes look at what they're doing and what works. Susan Weber is a driving force for growth at Walker & Dunlop. She is the Executive Vice President and CMO at Walker & Dunlop and has been leading the vision, strategy, and execution for all facets of marketing. She oversees brand management, public relations, media relations, client and employee events. Not just 1 or 2 client and employee events, but in some years, over 200 client and employee events. She also has been helping Walker & Dunlop drive strong new customer growth. I just watched their year in review because the CEO practices what he preaches, and they had reported that 69% of their loans were from new customers. And that's a very exciting thing to hear in the middle of COVID. And so what's really great about Susan and her team too, is that they really stand toe to toe with much bigger competitors like JP Morgan Chase and Wells Fargo and CBRE. So we're very glad to hear from Susan today. And then Eric McCarthy is joining us from Atlanta, Georgia. An illustrious career with multiple boards of directors and many different industries. He also had a 30-year career at the Coca-Cola Company, overseeing things like strategic planning, running operating units, raising funding, raising capital, and discovering new emerging markets. He's going to share with us today some things that he and his board members have been doing to re-energize growth in some of the traditional industries that you will be familiar with, and the thought process they're using as well. So without further ado, two of my friends and avatars, welcome Eric and Susan.
Hi, Lisa. Thanks for inviting me today.
My pleasure. Eric, how's it going in Atlanta today?
Hi, everybody.
Well, it's my pleasure to have you both here. And I do want to also mention, we are already getting comments and questions. Everyone, please remember to tell us where you're from. And just whenever the question strikes, post your questions here in our live chat. We'll be moderating that through the magical wonders and powers of. All right. So my gosh, December 18th, looking back. Susan, what has COVID been like for you?
Yeah. Well, I think it's, a combination of the unknown and the increased workload, not knowing how your business is going to be disrupted. Thankfully, ours was not too much, and we had a great year despite the pandemic. Having to adapt to a new landscape and accelerating marketing strategies, reevaluating what marketing initiatives we would spend our time on. We launched a new company, we managed a rebrand for a product line, and we launched a new channel to stay connected to our clients. So lots were happening. It's been a challenging year.
I know it's been a challenging year, but when you look back, what was the first thing you did with you have a team that you actually grew. Your budget grew, your team grew over the last year. And based on the hundreds of CMOs I've talked to, that's not very common right now for CMOs to be getting more budget and more responsibility. How did that happen in the middle of COVID?
Well, we had been building our, and adding people each year. So it was already a plan. So we didn't stop. We kept doing more and more, and we needed more people to support those needs. So yeah, we were very fortunate, and our company has become very invested in the brand. Really it's people, technology, and brand. That's what Walker & Dunlop's about, and so they're investing.
It's so exciting when you see brand and marketing front and center of a growth strategy of an organization. And Susan, you are a founding member of the Marketing Growth Leaders, our private peer community. And that's not always the case for some of our members.
That's true. That's true.
So it's exciting to hear that that's happening. Eric, you serve on several boards of directors, and you have talked often about some of the most important roles that board leaders need to serve through: the duty of care, duty of loyalty, and advancement. How have they remained consistent or constant during COVID, or how have they shifted for you because of the level of crisis?
Well, each one of the companies that I'm on the board of are in different industries, and so the force field analysis affecting each one of those companies
remained
in their future has been a very dynamic situation of change, and everybody that's on this call is familiar with that. What I have found the most important thing that boards need to do is stay very close to the leadership and management teams and understand exactly what their priorities are, because those priorities have been shifting considerably. And the alignment that you hear talked about in terms of good governance of any company and the alignment between a board and its leadership team, and then obviously the company and the culture that they are leading around what's important, if there's pivots that need to happen, how are those being coordinated, and what's the most important set of opportunities and risks facing those business models. So that's what I've been spending my time on as a board director.
And we're going to ask Eric to, there's a little bit of a sound challenge with your microphone, if you can move that a little closer. We have Jake joining us from Washington, D.C. Welcome, Jake. We have someone here who is actually just recently joined a board of directors within their company. So that's exciting. They're going to be posting a few questions for us. And Eric, is there any particular organization where you're a board member right now where you've seen a call for a dramatic shift in strategy, where maybe you were a little bit more hands-on than you may have been in the past?
Yes, a couple of our companies are going through very stressful hits because of the collapse of some of their primary markets and customers, or what I'll call the demand side of the business. And so because of that, the pivoting process is both urgent, complicated, involves a number of other parts of the company that have to be put together in a new way quickly. And so that particular example that I think we're going to talk about in a little bit is Salisbury Industries, and I can describe that in more detail when we get to that.
That would be great. And also, I'm welcoming Denise from Washington, D.C., who is joining us as well. And so I think we're going to be getting a lot of interested questions around the marriage of marketing and board level executives and how you can team up to address these moments of radical change. So welcome, Denise. Welcome, Jake. And we also have people joining us on Facebook. So let's talk a little bit more about Susan. You mentioned 3 things that you did to really shift gears, and some things that you didn't change when COVID hit. Talk to us about one of your, how your events strategy had to shift so quickly.
Sure. So wow. So obviously no events were happening. And so we had to pivot. And so my CEO and I had a conversation about what we could do. It became evident that in March that we weren't going to be able to travel and meet with our clients and socialize in ways that had become so natural for us. And so we were rightly concerned. And we hold a client conference every summer. And it was becoming clearer and clearer that was going to have to be canceled. So my CEO sat down and we started talking and said, what could we do to stay connected to our clients? And we had 4 speakers already committed for the summer conference. So we thought, well, maybe we could do one-on-one conversations. We had the technology in place to hold large meetings. Could we scale it if we needed to? We weren't sure, but let's give it a try. And so Willie called one of our guests, Shri Kumar, who was going to speak at our summer conference, and asked, would you be willing to do a one-on-one webinar and have a conversation about the economy? And we sent out invitations to our email list of 20,000 and got 1,800 people to register. And surprisingly, 1,200 of those attended live. We were stunned. And then Willie called a friend, Peter Linneman, who basically did the first cost analysis on what the shutdown was going to cost us and tied it back to lives. And Peter's analysis has been helpful for both economic costs of the pandemic as well as the economic cost for life. And not surprisingly, 5,000 people registered and almost 3,300 people attended live. And the Walker webcast was born. So we launched, we pivoted, we created the Walker webcast when we knew in-person events were not going to happen.
Boy, and one of the things that you're very good at is you and I've been collaborating now for 8 years, maybe 9. what's a year?
Who's
or so?
counting?
Who's counting? We started as children. And one of the things that really impresses me is how you have really started to measure and tie things back to revenues and engagement and influencing important large 7-8 figure deals for Walker and Dunlop. Tim, why don't you show perhaps the first slide? I mean, these numbers are impressive, Susan. Can you step us through?
Sure. So, as you can see, these numbers are amazing. We've actually had 2 more speakers since I created this slide, but our guest lineup has been really impressive, and we've been able to recruit top-notch speakers, including leading CEOs, iconic economists, military brass, civic leaders, top academics, and world-class athletes. And we've received a ton of feedback for bringing in speakers that aren't just crunching the numbers, which is important in my industry. We're in commercial real estate finance, but also focused on the soft skills that people need during a pandemic, such as emotional intelligence and leadership. And as you can see, the webcast has been a great success with more than 225,000 views since we started in March. And we started literally the Wednesday after everybody was starting to work from home. It was a very quick pivot. But on average, we get about 5,300 subscribers to register each week. Of those, about 3,000 listen live, and on average, about 3,300 watch the replay on YouTube. And some of our guests, Barry Sternlick, who's an icon in our industry from the Starwood Capital Group, got us over 13,000 registrations. He almost blew up our system. Thankfully, we had just under 10,000 live participants, so we were okay. If you want to go to the next slide, Lisa.
Yes, go ahead, Tim. Thank you.
So we're working to build on the success of the webcast. We launched our Walker Minute, which are short videos with the best quotes, insights, and outtakes. And these videos reflect a question asked on the webcast and gives the guest answer. And as you can see from the numbers on the slide, these have been very successful. We just started those probably 2 months ago. And to date, we've had almost 700,000 views of these clips on social media, driving about 2.6 thousand to our Driven by Insight web pages. Our goal really is just to expand our audience and grow our subscriber base. We recently created 2 short commercials, which we will push out via social targeting starting Monday. So look for those. And we're going to push those out to MBA business universities and publications, top general business publication, prospective clients, industry associations, and investors. So we're going to expand our audience from the commercial real estate sector. Next slide.
I love that. We have one of our visitors. I don't know where they're from, so tell us where you're from, but check this out. They're saying this is an amazing response and results. And I would concur with that. Because Susan, it's not easy to get people's attention when Eric, you might be having the same experience where you get emails and invitations on a daily basis for some kind of event.
Oh yeah. It's just crazy the amount of invitations we get. But, as you can see, the success of our websites has had a ripple effect on everything we've done in marketing this year. Our brand awareness and exposure metrics have all soared. And as you can see, there's been a big boost in PR. Our website traffic has increased by 131%. Huge social growth by promoting these registrations and replays in the Walker Minutes. And as you can see, our subscriber email list of 20,000 that I mentioned earlier, it's grown 10x to 120,000.
Okay, I just need to pause for a minute. That is, 10x. I am telling every client of mine, I don't care if you're a B2B company selling $50 million commercial real estate deals, or you are a software company selling $500 a year subscriptions. Your number one secret weapon for 2021 when it comes to marketing digitally is capturing email addresses.
Yes.
Because Eric and Susan, please tell me if you disagree. What I'm seeing is there is so much of a maelstrom happening with Google and Facebook and so much litigation. We just don't know what those platforms are going to look like 1 to 5 years from now. So we can't just sit back and say, well, we'll just run a few, we'll do some search engine optimization or run some ads on Facebook. We just don't know if they'll even look the same in a year.
Right. No, emails are key because they're opting in. They want your content. We've created this community. And really at the center of the community is our clients. And this series basically just helps us stay connected. And it provides viewers with information they want. And really, we're utilizing our broad network of leaders, both inside and outside of commercial real estate, and bringing that to our clients to give them those, the data, the insights they're looking for.
Thank you, Susan. Well, that is a year well done. And what are you doing if we'll just have those slides ready. If anyone wants them, send me an email to lisa@lisanorell.com, and we'll make sure you get a copy of the slides. And so let's look now, Eric, at what you've done, because you're taking it from not the angle of a CMO, but as a very market-focused board executive. Could you walk us through what you've done with one of the companies where you're serving on the board?
Sure. As I said earlier, and I think we're going to show this slide of Salisbury Industries while it's coming up. So Salisbury Industries is based in Texas, and I've been on their board of directors for about 5 years, and they operate as an EPC company. EPC means engineering, procurement, and construction. And they build $200 million, $400 million sized, what are called cryo plants, which takes natural gas and breaks it up into its different components and moves it downstream to all kinds of applications. Well, this company's been about a $700 million company. And over a period of 6 months, it was reduced to a $200 million company.
Ouch.
Because all of the CapEx projects that come from a lot of the big energy players dried up. So the pandemic created a catastrophic decrease in the size of the market. So Salisbury and our board have been faced with trying to reposition the company to completely different markets. In the upper circles there, you see adjacent oil and gas, and then the top one, which is non-oil and gas. So again, this is an engineering company and a construction company that built its reputation and its brand in a particular segment of the market. And in order for it to have possibilities of survival and growth, it has to reposition itself. And so we challenged the company and marketing in particular to be able to build us an intelligence base quickly around what those other market dynamics are, and especially non-oil and gas. So as an example, hydrogen power, which is going to become a very large force in keeping and supplying the energy grid of the United States, probably in the next 20 years, are similar kinds of construction projects that Salisbury has the ability to go after. But it's got to establish its brand and its reputation with a whole new set of clients and customers. So that's one of many examples that are underway with some scenario planning. And I guess the big takeaway I would like to give the audience here is that in industrial companies, not so much in consumer companies, and I have a few of the examples as well, we're not going to have time to get into them. Marketing as a function is taking on a very important role of gathering new kinds of intelligence so that the option planning, so that the brand repositioning work can be thoughtfully guided. And when you're doing this under that kind of stress, as you can imagine, in this particular industry, there is a high quotient of back and forth collaboration. The management team is learning at the same time the board's learning. So it's very dynamic, it's very exciting, very risky, but that's our job, is to navigate through that. So I'll stop talking.
Well, that's very helpful. Now, the interesting part of what you're saying that I'm curious about is that if you listen to other seasoned board members, such as a very well-known tech entrepreneur and board member who sits on the board of Nordstrom and a few others, is Shelley Archambault. And she was just on Guy Kawasaki's podcast. And she said, well, we should not have operational involvement in the company. We should be hands off. But what I'm seeing here is you're more of a collaborator with marketing than just a hands off, high level strategy advisor.
Yes. And there's two different kinds of philosophies. I don't know her, but there's a lot of different philosophies out there around the role boards play with management. Kind of, you've heard the term nose in, hands out. I don't subscribe to that model. I think that model is very inefficient and long-term is not in the best interest of the stakeholders. And stakeholder management has become more of a norm, I think, in the governance space. But I guess my key insight is that related to marketing has been part of the company that can educate the board the fastest. And this is about learning quickly. So the partnership we needed to have with marketing was to be on the field with them about how they're going to gather and whether they're going to gather their intelligence so we can get smarter, faster. So that's been my experience with this particular company.
So really the old rules or the traditional rules that maybe we grew up with, or maybe that even the National Association of Corporate Directors might teach us, the nose, the famous saying you just mentioned. What is it? Nose in, hands off. Maybe that's not relevant in the middle of a pandemic. And we need,
my experience is it's not relevant anymore. Right.
Right. So I have a comment here from Jake in DC. He says, I agree that pivoting thing, expanding impact at the same time is difficult to do, especially backed by revenue metrics. So that's an interesting comment. Do either of you have any thoughts or response to that?
Yeah, I mean, it's true. It is hard to pivot, and it's hard. But if you can show that, that what you're doing is making an impact on revenue, I mean, clearly that's important. I know for us, this webcast and everything, how it's expanding out and how it's bringing in more clients. I mean, 51% of transacting client accounts have attended our webcast. And of those, 70% have done deals between the last I looked, January 1st and August 25th. So we're tracking that, we're watching it, and so we can show that as well. So that's just social.
That is significant. I am coaching the VP of marketing of a multi-billion-dollar company right now, and they would dance in the streets if they had 51% response. They're getting 37 this is on a good day. When they send out an important announcement, a marketing related announcement to their own employees, they're only getting a 36 to 37% open rate. So if the fact that you're getting that from an organically grown email list, I want everybody, if you forget everything else about this live stream, run don't walk to your nearest email marketing system and get some creative ways to build your organic list of email newsletter list, because it's powerful if you use it.
I think it's really important to understand what it is your clients want. Ask them, what do you want? Ours, it's data and it's insights, and bringing them the information that others just aren't. They want to do business with people that continue to help them and give them more than just what you're selling, whatever that might be. We provide much more than just the financing. We're their partner. We want to understand their vision, and really help them make that vision become a reality.
Well, one of my banker is one of the ones I mentioned earlier, and I have had my accounts with them for at least 21 years. How many phone calls or nice emails do you think they have sent me in the last 20 years asking Lisa Norell, what's your vision for growing your business? How could we help you grow your business? Are you struggling with any financial aspects of your business? Goose egg.
Yeah.
Goose egg, 21 years. And I'm a good client with my credit score is like 800 points. So, I pay my bills. I'm a good citizen. Zero. Zippo.
Yeah.
So what I think that's that is how you have changed the rules in the lending world.
Absolutely.
You're not just some blank person, some robot in the back in a call center just answering questions or having chat bots handling your client needs.
For sure. It's what every marketer should be doing. It's simple.
Eric, how are your companies shifting how they relate to customers, or in the case here of Salisbury, finding future customer opportunities that are unmet?
Yeah, the concept of listening posts is something that I've been spending a lot of time trying to study. And let me explain what I mean by that. In any industry, you have your first derivative customers, and then you have your second derivative customers. And a lot of your primary customers have been facing their own challenges related to the pandemic. So how do you see beyond their customers to understand those ripples of change and where they're going? And so what I have been challenging the marketing teams in my respective companies is, what is your first derivative and second derivative listening post? Where are you getting your information? And then how are you drawing insights from it? Because stress test just how deep you can go in an industry's ecosystem to give you a what I'll call potential competitive advantage. And in my opinion, marketing has to play that role inside a company. And there really isn't another function of the company that can do it well. Finance to some extent, but I believe that in an area of this kind of dynamic change where demand cycles are being completely rebuilt, you've got to have the right listing post map. And so we've been spending a lot of time trying to work with our marketing teams to describe what those look like.
And so, Eric, when you give advice to the CMOs and the heads of business development in your respective companies, what do you tell them so they can start to think more like board executives as opposed to maybe a traditional marketer of, the early 2000s?
Yeah. Well, look, marketing fundamentally has two responsibilities. They have to both develop the brand and decide how the expressions of the brand are going to go into the marketplace. That's number one. Number two is they have to be demand creators. And what do I mean by that? I mean that they have to understand the different segmentations of target consumers or customers and understand how the company needs to position itself to be attractive. and not just from your primary offering, but how you price yourself, etc. All those things have been turned upside down in this pandemic. So you have to start with a kind of a base case of the business model, and the marketing teams have to understand what are the capabilities of the business model, how are they being utilized by the first tier and second tier customers, how are they differentiated, and what are they going to have to do in order to become sharper, better, etc. That feeds into the other parts of the company. And so that's what I think the challenges facing contemporary marketing teams have to be on top of.
That's very helpful, Eric. And Susan, if you had the board sitting in front of us right now, what advice would you give the board so they can get the greatest value from marketing?
Continue investing in marketing. Yeah. So continue investing in marketing, and, continuing to, we're watching, everything we're doing is data driven. We're providing the data. We have every quarter, we participate in what the board sees, and we put together a very robust report on all the things we're doing and all the data behind it, what's working, what's not. If it's not working, we tell them what we're going to do instead of that. So, continuing to invest and listen to what we're showing them.
Very helpful, yes, and keeping them informed every step of the way. Every step of the way. We have time for one or two more comments or questions. And while we're waiting on those, tell us as we wrap up this year. By the way, I was watching CBS News this morning. And when they have a year in review and they run a video montage of the various moments in time of 2020, I think they ran out of film reel because there were so many things that happened this year. It ran for minutes upon minutes, and I couldn't believe it. So I think all of us have lived dog years in 2020. I think we lived 7 years in 1 year. So I just want to mention, the fact that we're sitting here and we're well and we're grateful in itself is a miracle. What advice would you give your younger self, Eric, as a result of this 10-month-long life experience? What would you say to your younger self right now?
That's a good question. I think you want to have a very positive attitude, right? Everything kind of flows from somebody's attitude. So you want to have an abundance kind of attitude, but you want to be very practical and realistic. And it's the merger of those two things, right? Being agile and ready and prepared, and be a curiosity person of kind of relentless curiosity.
That's great. And Gary, we have Gary joining us from San Diego, and he says, truth. This year has felt like 7 years. Oh my gosh. Yes, Gary, we are like-minded in that department. Susan, what advice would you offer your younger self?
Sure. Be open to possibilities and take chances. I think we've all proven during this pandemic that we can rise to any challenge thrown at us. For my marketing team, we talked about doing a podcast or a webcast, but never had the time or the buy-in from management, frankly. And sometimes you just need a catalyst to kick things into high gear.
Yes. So what that aphorism, necessity is the mother of invention. It's so true right now.
For sure.
Wait, the mother, the father, the sister, the cousin, the brother, the aunts, the uncles, and the grandparents.
It takes a village.
Well, we have come up to the end of our phenomenal time together. I thank you for being part of our village of marketing leaders, growth-minded, positive thinking professionals, and most importantly, for being my friend. I could not do these live streams without generous, kind people like you who are willing to give their life experiences and pragmatic advice. So for those of you watching, make sure you connect with Susan and Eric on LinkedIn to stay current on all of their accomplishments. And I also remind you, contact me if you want to get these slides, and we'll be happy to share a copy with you. Susan and Eric, really great to see you. And happy holidays to your families and your loved ones.
Happy holidays.
All right, see ya.
Well, folks, it is time to wish you all a healthy and happy year ahead. I'm going to leave you with just 6 questions you might ask yourselves. And I'm going to actually be asking Tim to show us what's coming in January as well. We have some exciting sessions coming up starting in January. So if you work with women, if you are a woman and you're wanting to propel your career, we're going to be discussing some COVID career strategies for women leaders from a woman who has a great best-selling book called How Women Rise. Sally Helgeson is a fellow member of the Marshall Goldsmith 100 Coaches community, of which I am a member. And boy, she is going to be sharing some tremendous insights around that. I hope you'll be there. And then January 15th, a fellow LinkedIn Learning colleague, author and professor Drew Boyd will be sharing with us some brand new customer retention strategies that he's been using with his corporate clients. Drew is a former CMO. So those are our scheduled events coming up. I hope you put this on your calendar for the first 3 Fridays of every month. This is the Mindful Marketer Live Stream. Happy holidays and stay well, everyone.